This concept just reminded me of like what you were saying, like how we're not maximizing our full potential. It reminded me of something my dear friend and one of our first podcast guest, Deborah, she said to me, and she's like, I believe this is the quote. She said it to me when we were in a coffee shop in Paris. She was like, do nothing at the cost of alignment. And
that's good.
And I just like, it really just like baked in the lessons, because we've been thinking about this for a while. Just like every time we do something that's misaligned, or every time we're not maximizing our potential, we feel it.
Yeah.
We feel the hurt. Yeah. And I think that just like, it's like, yes, that's so true. Like nothing is worth it to let that part of you go. It's not worth it. And I feel like it's tempting in a lot of situations to not use your brain. Like it's very tempting. It's tempting to scroll. It's tempting to not make a choice because you can't fail, you know, like it's tempting to just drift and be whoever. It's easier to take the checklist, going back to our first episode, the checklist of what people give you, but you will feel the cost at some point. And it could even be a daily thing where you just feel this dread, you just feel this emptiness, you just feel this void because you're not taking control of your life. And I think that's by design. I don't think we're supposed to be numb and just checklisting our way through life. I think we're supposed to put effort. We're supposed to work hard. Right. We're supposed to try to figure out what's in our brain and use it. Like that's what we were, like I feel like that's what we were designed for, you know, like look at all the advancements we've made as a society. Like that came from a drive that we all have to keep going higher. Like that's what we crave, but we're trying to go higher. And how many more videos can I scroll, or how many more Uber Eats can I order this week? It's like going in the wrong direction. And it's like, use that power that your brain has towards what you want. Like that would blow your mind. Like the same thing you saw on the screen, but in something that favors you, that helps you towards your dream life. Like you creating, like, and that's why I find the dream life concept so fascinating. Like we have that power that, you know, your brain did. And just like that, we could put that to our dreams and make that a reality just like that with, I mean, not like just like that, but you know, over time and create what we want. And it's like, I think, going back to what you said a little bit earlier about like, you're driven by the negative. If the positive doesn't drive you, just kind of like mentally note how negative it feels to be in the situation you're in right now. I think that's very motivating. Like Alex Hormozy says that all the time. Like you have to hate something about your current situation for you to like want better, to go out of your way, because it's uncomfortable to go out of your way and maximize your potential. It's uncomfortable to be aligned or like figure out how to be aligned, you know? But if you think about the cost, if you think about the negative emotion, if you think about the situation, like, do you want to live like this forever? Could you live like this forever?
Or would you want your kids to live like this? I think that's a more powerful frame for people too.
That's a good one. Like,
because they're going to learn from you.
They're going to, don't get me started. Yeah. Like, would you want your kid, like this, imagine this fresh, innocent baby, this happy, hopeful child. And within the next few days, they start living like you and feeling exactly how you feel right now. Would you be happy about that? No, like we want the best for our kids. We want the best for and you should want the best for yourself. You're someone's kid. Like you're someone's kid. Like do something with that life that you have. It's precious. You never know what you could do with it. And I'm not encouraging people to hate their life. There are things you can be grateful for. But I feel like if you're even watching this podcast, you know there's something for you. You know there's something better for you. And you need to actively use whatever you can to get to the next step. Whatever you got. And if that, like for me, I just kept seeing people who were aligned, living in their energy, just flowing through life. And I was just like, I can get that. I can do that. And I didn't know what alignment and all these things were at the time. I didn't know, I had no idea where to go next, but I just knew I didn't want this. I knew I couldn't just keep sitting here and watching people live a life that like, why couldn't I have that too? Mm-hmm. And that's what drove me to do it. It was the negative side about it, the things I hated about my life mm-hmm. that made me want to become this person that I am today. And it's 100% worth it, 1,000% worth it. Like, just seeing, it's kind of like that movie Limitless, but in a positive direction. Like seeing what your brain can do. Yeah. You're like, oh, that's all it took for me to just to start. Like, all I had to do was just get started. Mm-hmm. You're going to wow yourself. Now that I'm getting here, I look back at this older version of me. I'm like, man, like I had back pains. I was always tired. I didn't have energy. I was kind of like overindulging a lot, like shopping a lot, eating a lot, and just I was going about it in the wrong ways. Like I wanted the same thing, but I was going about it in the wrong ways, and it was costing me a lot of time, energy with clients I didn't align with. Like, it was costing me. And now I have those memories stored in my brain. So anytime something is misaligned or is pointing in that direction, I'm like, it may sound tempting, but this is where it leads you.
I think people tend to overvalue money, and they completely disregard these other things. They disregard like their emotional well-being, their health, their time, their attention, their relationships. And they will give up all of that stuff for a steady paycheck. It's like, well, no. What if you just kind of reshuffled the deck and started prioritizing whatever you can right now? And that person that you would become, like, because right now you're making this paycheck, you're generating X amount of value a year, like whatever your salary is, and you are almost like, you could be the worst version of yourself. Terrible health, terrible emotional well-being, like not inspired, just distracted. But you're still generating whatever number this is, like 50 grand a year, 100 grand a year, whatever it is. Imagine if you got these stats up, even if you have to put a pause on your money for a short period of time, and you get that emotional well-being, you get your health right, you get your routine and your discipline, you get the money. It's unreasonable to become this amazing version of yourself and generate less value than that person who didn't have any of that. No, I think that's a really good way to put it. Like, and this is my theory, and this is part of the reason we started this podcast, and part of the reason we're doing what we do, is I feel like you and I just want to prove that point so bad. Like, because people, if you like, people will like we can say like, oh, like health and emotions and relationships, and people are like, yeah, but in the back of everyone's mind is still how much money is that, like how much money am I going to get paid? Exactly. It's you're just thinking about, and it's natural, it's our survival instinct. It makes sense, but it's counterintuitive. So the thing is, you think, oh, to get money, I need to make money. And that's how people typically look at making money. If I want to make more money, I just have to make more money. Yes, but getting there is going to look a lot different than you think it does. Because however you're thinking about making money right now, and if you're not rich by whatever standard you require, something's not working in that formula. Okay. So the people who have the money, and I think they try to tell us, and everyone's like, no, that's not true. That's just made up. There's no way that can be possible, or like, that's just BS. But it's like, how you actually get the wealth or the money that you're looking for is through these other random things that you think are not related to the actual creation of it. And so, like, I guess all that to say is, like, I feel like no one will really believe us until it's like works. Until it's like you with freelance, where you're making like 2 to 3 times more as a freelancer than you were in corporate. And so, like, now us doing what we do now, making even more than we were making before, like, until we get to that point, like, I feel like there's always going to be those naysayers, those doubters. And I feel like that's a motivating force. Because it's like, I don't know, it's just like the doubt other people's doubt is like fuel for me, or
it is.
Or like if people like one of the worst things you can do, most dangerous things you could do is underestimate us. Like whenever I feel like someone underestimates me, I'm like, no problem.
Merry Christmas. Merry fucking Christmas. Thank you. No, literally,
and then
that will
that
push.
Is just a driving force.
I've heard some other people say this too, because I'm like, is this just me? Like, why am I so sick and twisted? But if somebody underestimates me, cool, got it, I'm good. Like, thank you. Actually, you just gave me fuel for another fucking 365 days. Like, I'm just like, I will die proving you wrong. And I don't know what that is, but it's not even just that. I truly believe this, and yes, we haven't shown it physically, but I think by focusing on your health, your mindset, you're like focusing on what matters to you, what you value, what is aligned. I swear, I feel like that is the secret to making all the money in the world, like whatever you want to make. And for example, like with freelance, that was still, like, that wasn't 100% aligned, but it was a lot more aligned than corporate. And literally in 6 months, and I think this is where I learned just like the baby steps of making more money, because I always thought to make 6 figures, which is now becoming like a normal income. Back then it was kind of like, whoa, you know, I used to be like, that just doesn't happen until you're like 45 and you're like a VP level. Like that just doesn't work. And at 22 or 23, going from like making 60 grand a year to like, when I tallied up like my whole year, it was like 120 grand from freelancing clients. And like, I wasn't even working the entire year, like full time. Like it was like a lot more laid back, felt so much more natural. It was a lot easier for me. I was just like,
you like the work better.
I like the work better. It was a lot more aligned. Like I was just like, oh, like making money doesn't have to be this hard, impossible task if you're doing what's aligned and what matters to you. And you're matching your skills and your talents with what you like to do. And so I just was like, that makes so much more sense now. And it really changed my whole perspective on money and making money, because I was like, it's not hard. There's something I'm missing. And I think that's what we're kind of like, we always remind ourselves of now. It's like making the first million and like making your first 500,000 or whatever. It's like, it's hard, but it's hard only because you're missing something. There's just one thing you're missing. It's not that it's this like linear hard grind, because I went from making that like half of my income to, or I went from making that 60,000 to like that 100,000 in like 6 months. And it was just a switch. It was something mentally and physically. Like first it happened with the mental, then it was like, oh, physical. And then you just switch and then it happens. It was fast. It was super fast. And in that year, I changed my whole income. It's not linear.
It's like flat, but then some critical piece of information comes through the window and you're like, oh shit. And it jumps up. Because once you figure it out, and I just figured out, I was like, oh, like I have these skills that people need. I can put my own price tag on it. This is in demand right now. It just works out. But, you know, of course, like there's years before that of like learning and doing whatever. But it came from me listening to my curiosity. And I think that's the main thing. It's like there are things that you have a talent right now that people are willing to pay for. You're not listening to your talent. So you're not even practicing your talent. And then you're not looking for people to give an exchange that with, because you're not listening to yourself. You're not even doing it. You're not in the field. You're not showing up as that person. And a great example might be your friend.
Oh my God. I want to save that. Like,
okay, let's save it for later.
So, I'm sure this will be out later, but yeah. If you follow our Son account, which is my new brand, Sans Raison, which is, it's without reason in French. I'm going to be talking about all types of stories like this. So just stay tuned and follow us and join the newsletter, because there's going to be lots of freebies and lots of cool, inspiring motivation to keep going if you're doing something like this. But I just feel like following, you can fill in the blank, passions, curiosity, freedoms, excitement. There's never a bad there's never a bad outcome or ending to these things, because that's where making money feels natural, because something that is natural to you is in demand. You just have to either be there at the right time, or you just need to develop it a little bit more to where it is in demand at some point, and you just like, it just matches up with the market. So I want to bring this up because sometimes it's hard to see, like, what do I hate about my life? Because it seems all normal to you.
You're used to it.
You're used to it. But I think if you are in that situation where you know something's not right, but everything around you seems normal, like it doesn't seem like that bad. One of my favorite approaches is exposure therapy, because I think this is where you start seeing gaps. And it wasn't until I was watching those people that I really like loved their life. They were living their dream life, that I was like, wait a minute, there's something different that they have that I don't have, and I want it. I mean, if you see people's life and you don't want it, whatever, that's not your dream life. But if you see people, or you see things, or you see industries or projects that you're just like, I'm kind of curious, like something's interesting, is drawing me towards this thing, and you observe it enough that you start identifying the gap, that's a sign. There wouldn't be a gap if there wasn't some potential for you to fill in there. You know, I didn't look at people with like, luxury cars and be like, oh yeah, like I felt nothing. So that's not my zone of genius, right? But when I saw influencers, when I saw content creators, when I saw people starting brands, I was like, ooh, like that's interesting. And then that's where I started to see there was a creative gap between where I was and where they are. And I feel like that can help you start, because you always, like we said, if you don't have a foundation, if you don't have the vision, identifying the problem is always the first step. And if you don't identify the problem, you don't have one. So I would start exposing yourself to things that you're interested in, which is follow your curiosity, follow your passion, because when you see it and you don't have it, you're going to do anything to close that gap. And it might seem unnecessary at first, but the closer you get to it, the more necessary it will become, I promise. And then that unnecessary thing, when you pass it and you achieve it, you're going to be like, thank God I did that, because look at how my life used to be. You know what I mean? So I think that's a little tip.
You know, another version of that is like, so you're saying kind of start looking at things that are interesting to you, and if you're like drawn toward it, like that might be some version of your dream life, or some aspects of your dream life are in there. Another version of that, I actually heard from Nassim Taleb. He's an author. He was on the Tim Ferriss podcast. He was talking about this. He said for him, he would see what he was envious of, and he was always envious of people that were very like well-read, very scholarly, very like, you know, intellectual. And he would always envy that. And he was just like this trader, you know, he's like working on Wall Street, and he always envied that in people. And so that's kind of what drove him to start becoming an author. And now he's like a philosopher basically. And so that's how he knew where he wanted to go, like what he was envying in other people. So that's like another version. Like you could be drawn toward it, but you could also be like angry at that person.
Totally.
You know, it's like they have my dream life, and I'm like upset about it.